Excellent. Michelle, do you want to do an introduction still, or should I just get us going?
I'm going to do the introduction.
Perfect.
All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. In today's session, we will explore the top trends in AI and automation for 2024. We encourage your participation, so please feel free to enter questions at any time using the Q&A box, and our presenters will address each question at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, I will now like to hand it off to our speakers.
Thanks, Michelle. Sorry for the first start there. Jason, welcome. Folks, I'm so glad that you're here. Let me just start with a quick introduction of myself. Jason, I'll turn it back over to you. I'm Will Roberts. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for AI Products here at Ushur. And with me, I have our wonderful partner, Jason Frieden from EPAM. Jason, would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Jason Friedman. I'm Managing Director, really in charge of our life insurance advisory practice for EPAM, although I work across all of the insurance and some banking space as well.
And for EPAM, to those who might not happen to know it quite as well as you and I do, how would you give a quick overview of what EPAM does?
Sure. So it's interesting. Actually, prior to coming to EPAM a year ago, I hadn't heard of us either. But we are over 50,000 people strong globally, and came up as an engineering firm, kind of the engineers, if you will. And over the last 10 years or so, 15 more broadly for some pieces, we've been expanding into also doing more advisory business, more work on the business side to make sure that we're able to feed that technology capability behind the scenes.
Yeah, so you have the engineering chops, and you're obviously bringing in your expertise from knowing the business now and combining those services. That seems like it makes a lovely partnership with Ushur. And Ushur, for people who don't know, we are a customer experience automation platform. We have a no-code studio to build customer experiences that deliver secure and compliant experiences across the value chain. And I think that our perspectives together give us a really unique way to talk about trends in the industry. So let me set the agenda, if I can, just briefly. Jason, for the next 40 minutes, we have an opportunity to discuss the current investments in automation, some priorities and challenges, customers' journeys and the way that they are applying automation, and the expected benefits from AI and automation, as well as how to choose an AI solution, in which we obviously have a opinionated point of view. But Jason, let's start with current investments in automation. And for the folks who are on the call, you'll see graphics that look specifically Ushur branded, and some which are from EPAM. We've done a joint presentation here, but the graphics and statistics shown are from a report we commissioned on interviewing hundreds of C-suite and executives, decision makers in IT, who in 2024, who are considering the value of automation right now for their budgets and their roadmaps. And we've distilled their opinions into certain graphics here so that you guys have a way to view the results from that survey. So with that in mind, Jason, I want to start with the first thing that we really pulled out from this survey, which was that there seems to be a trend in investments for customer service and support, IT. I know that you at CPAM, you've been thinking a lot about very specific specific uses for, say, automating underwriting projects and claims and such. We'll get into that in a little bit, but from a high level, the functional areas, does this sort of jive with what you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. And I think largely across the industry or across financial services broadly, the focus is on how to improve the experience for a customer and do so through a level of automation. And then, in terms of IT itself as well, there's, I think up until recently, it's been undervalued how much can be automated within the IT space. And that has been a big area of focus with my customers. Folks who I'm working with right now are very much in the middle of completely changing out how they manage their own IT shop internally because of automation.
Yeah. And is it safe to say that they feel from your conversations that there's huge opportunity for expanding capabilities with automation, especially in IT?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of the two pieces. One piece is just around how much of that is just how much money can we save, especially in the short run, right? And there's always been that, we've gotten some level of cost savings through labor arbitrage and outsourcing some things, and that kind of run its course. And then there's a level through automation. But there's also an ability to create a whole new capability, especially for IT, around how you service your IT customers. And that is something that I think is becoming more and more appreciated. And in every case that I'm working with, when they're looking at cost savings, they're also looking at, that they don't want to do it at the expense of the experience for their IT customers.
Yeah, of course. And I think that the experience for IT customers is often something secondarily considered, which was a great concern with Ushur. And a part of the reason that Ushur's mission is to sort of bridge the gap between customer experience, employee experience, find an automation solution that can serve both. So it seems like what you have seen in your customer conversations is that gap still persists.
Absolutely. I think in a lot of cases, the experience that the business has had with IT has been one of feeling that they're getting less service, and now we need to be able to make that back up within the IT world.
Interesting. Well, you kind of alluded to one of the challenges, I suppose we'll consider. It's an opportunity if you frame it the right way. But with approaching artificial intelligence projects, you discussed the need to mitigate increased operational costs, find ways to manage existing expenses. In the report that we commissioned, we found that the vast majority of executives agree with you. From their priorities and challenges with customer experience, 77% feel that it's a challenge to manage increased operational costs. And it's a priority for 76% of them to identify and remedy customer friction points. We obviously have a very specific opinion on that with Ushur, since that's essentially our business model. But what are you sort of, what do you sort of see that aligns to these points of view? Or does this reassure your point of view rather that these are top challenges?
No, I think it reassures the point of view more than anything else. I was going to make fun of you and say, no, we totally disagree. Your business model is never going to work. But no, the truth of the matter is, I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily rocket science if you're a CIO or a CTO in an organization, that these are kind of what's on your mind day to day once you're out of the, urgent and important categories of life.
Right.
But really, as you look across the value chain for, certainly for insurers and for bankers, each one, this is kind of the lens that they look through their value chain and say, okay, so am I able to relieve customer friction points? Am I able to decrease or at least maintain my cost structure? And what can I do to improve my product, improve my customer service through better insight? I think that's kind of almost the filter, the background that, and you'll see as we kind of go into looking at that broad view of where we see the benefits, that it very much aligns with that kind of mindset for the executives.
It's a good teaser for later content where we
it is a good teaser
more about the value chain. But if I could just pull apart challenges for customer experience objectives a bit more precisely, if I could, I think that there's also this floating concern with the advent and expansion of Gen AI, that there's a whole new suite of challenges that business executives haven't even thought of before when it comes to hallucinations or inaccuracy, brand new risk profiles essentially for technology. I'm curious from a challenges point of view, really, like what's changed with Gen AI? And I don't have a whole pre-canned set of wonderful stats for you here to talk about it, but I think that that's another challenge that folks coming especially off of our launch announcement yesterday probably are thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so a couple of things that I would say. First of all, in terms of, like you mentioned, hallucinations,
Yeah.
there is a level of, and especially in a regulated industry like I work in, there's a level of certainty you need to have around the data that you're using. And that level you have to be able to reverse engineer where that data came from. You had
Right.
to have to be confident that you're not suffering from that kind of hallucination. You have to have multiple sources. And this is something that certainly we believe very strongly in. If you look at the things that we've been building out, um, there are certain places where, without question, you need to be able to address those, or else there's no point in going forward. So I think
Yeah.
that's the first one. And I think the second one is around, from a user and a customer's point of view, feeling a level of confidence that
Mm.
this is real, that this is the right answer. And how do you overcome that? How do you present things in a way that it makes it clear and it makes it so that it's believable,
Mm.
right? So I think that's extremely important. And then, the last thing is, I think where we are is a place where it's time to be experimenting, finding the places where you can make incremental differences using AI, using Gen AI in particular, and then be able to, as the confidence grows, as you're certain that the data that you're training with is correct, then you can expand it, you can use it more and more.
Yeah. I think that that's a nuanced approach to bringing in a new technology that we kind of have to advocate for with these big regulated experiences. And
Exactly.
a new paradigm for AI, right? Gen AI is fantastic and has captured the imagination of millions of people because it comes up with novel answers, but it's not always necessarily the right answer. And the regulated experience wants to use the power and the fluidity of generative AI, but needs to also benefit from serving up the right answer.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so I appreciate you reassuring me that that's still the case. But
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
I think what I want to talk in more detail about now that we better understand the enterprise risk profile for customer experiences driven by AI is where customers of Ushur, as an example, of the folks that we interviewed, view places in their customer journeys, where the points in their customer journeys, rather, where automation is currently being applied, and get a better sense from you if you've seen the same at EPAM and whether it's the risks for new AI products match the possible benefits. So in our report, we saw that customer service, customer onboarding, sales, and retention are the three leading categories for where customer journeys benefit from applying automation. We'll get to your broader touch point across the value chain
Sure.
in a second, but just speaking to this now, does that also kind of align with your understanding?
I think it's exactly right. You mentioned briefly that we've been doing a lot of work in underwriting. That's obviously in the insurance space, part of that process. Um, the between customer service, onboarding, and sales.
Yeah.
There's no question. I would say that the claim space as well, increasingly is an area where automation is being explored. I don't know that it's in large production except for certain data analysis on the back end. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if you just kind of these certainly jibe with where we're seeing that investment happen and also where we're seeing benefits.
Claims is called out here at 33% of the respondents were thinking about applying automation for claims. why do you think that not a lot of those cases are getting into production?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons, and I wouldn't say that they're completely not. They are in terms of analytics of the data on the back end. But one is just how many people are currently investing in new claims solutions
Yeah.
and thinking about it, right? So you just kind of have to look at where you are in that life cycle. But where they are, I think that the other thing is um, understanding where the biggest benefit is with the lowest risk in terms of what we're talking about hallucinations and bad
Sure.
data and things like that. And honestly, within EPAM, it's one of the areas that we believe very strongly in and are building out our own capabilities and our own go-to-market so that we can exactly address that kind of claims, the claims benefits with Gen AI.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect tee up for EPAM's experience and how you guys are thinking about applying this to better help your customers in your go-to-market exercises. This is quite a bit of information. So how we
this is
try to distill this for customer journeys.
Yeah. And I'm not going to drain this in any way, but the approach that we've taken, and this is one example. We've actually done this with every type of insurance for regular P&C, for commercial, for life, but looking at the level 2 business processes across the board and really going through each one of those processes and saying, where are either proven cases or opportunities to leverage automation and AI in order to improve those processes, right? And so we did this initially as an internal set of goals about a year and a half ago, where we were looking at where we're going to invest. And then kind of coming out of that, it was, all right, here, how do we, for example, within underwriting, which is obviously a big area of focus, what are the specific areas that we should be applying technologies such as yours to be able to make that difference for customers? And then, what are the barriers for each one? And you can see here, so the dark blue, I'm not, without draining everything, the middle section is kind of the, from left to right is from building new products through sales, through claims, reinsurance, and risk management. Above is markets, and below is kind of the back office stuff, right? And you can see what's dark is the where the highest value is, and what is low is kind of gray. And so essentially focusing on those dark areas and then prioritizing them based on both where people are investing now in their companies, as well as where the biggest bang for the buck is. That's kind of the approach that EPAM has taken. And it's actually really reassuring to me, Will, that it's absolutely aligned with what you guys found in your in the work you did. You can kind of see from that underwriting set of processes, market interaction at the top. Those are all the dark blue areas.
Yeah. Well, one of the key things that I think we can pull out from this is that along the value chain where there's immense value added from automation, there's probably also a time factor included. Automating it over the longest time horizon from Ushur's perspective seems like a possibility, and IT departments are exceptional at doing it eventually. I'm wondering if you have any opinions on someone like EPAM stepping in with tooling like Ushur to do it in a reasonable amount of time so that you can deliver these projects expediently. Is that something that your experience has confirmed is important?
Oh, it's absolutely important. I mean, look, no one's doing a return on investment that is over 5 or 6 years, right?
Right, exactly.
So you've got to be able to bring benefits very quickly. one of the things, and you and I, we'll talk about this, I think, a little more later on, but start with finding one part of the business process where we can make a difference. And rather than going straight to, okay, we're going to automate the entire thing and we're going to go straight to a customer, use it as an assisted underwriting solution where the underwriter is getting better information and they can still make a professional judgment, but with the right information highlighted. Things like that we can do very quickly.
Yeah.
And also it's good that it's going to learn over the next, X number of months so that information will continue to get better. If you were to go straight to an agent or a broker or a customer with that, it has to be perfect right away. You're going to be spending too much time trying to get it perfect before you roll it out.
Yeah. And sometimes the old saying, right, perfect is the enemy of good enough. And when it comes to automation, sometimes you have to work for the good enough in order to make a big difference in your business.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. I think that's a good tee up to talking about benefits because we're sort of alluding to when we are realizing the benefits from AI and automation. And in the report, what we saw was that there are obvious expected benefits in bringing automation into customer experiences, specifically intelligent automation from the perspective of savings on cost, potential for increased revenue, but most importantly, higher CSAT scores. This was across healthcare, it was across insurance and financial services, the folks that we interviewed. I know that you are thinking about how to land, efforts like generative AI products for insurance carriers, but do the expected benefits seem to ring true to your audience?
I lost the chart.
Excuse me.
They do. Well, one of the things I was wondering about on this is, so when you talk about higher CSAT scores, was there any kind of double click on that at all in terms of how they expect? Like, is it directly that the experience is going to be so much better, or is it more about anticipation of what the client's going to ask, or kind of has that been thought through at all, or is that kind of the next level beyond this?
So the paradigm from Ushur is that the best answer or the best question to answer is the one that hasn't been asked yet, right? So our idea is to be as proactive as possible with our customer experiences, which is, I think, in general, a different way of deploying a customer experience solution from a lot of maybe what you see in the space in the industry. So from our point of view and what we've seen in our experience is that by being proactive with customer experiences, you're able to drive higher customer satisfaction scores. For the purposes of the survey, we're mostly trying to figure out what are the expected benefits that where we were asking, what were the survey respondents presuming they'd see their higher CSAT scores. There wasn't a second level after that too, in which
Gotcha. Yeah. So look, I think that it absolutely aligns. One of the things that I thought was I don't know if it was exactly a surprise, but was interesting to me is agent task automation. A lot of insurers, at least on the surface, would align that very much with CSAT, depending on the kind of insurer they are. So if they have a captive agent force or they work exclusively with certified financial planners, they're helping to improve the agent experience to the customer by automation and by providing better information to that agent will create higher CSAT scores. And so there tends to be a lot of focus for those types of insurers on that kind of automation. Which wouldn't be true if you're, mostly just a producer or a product manufacturer of sorts.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that I want to come back to a point that we had spoken about briefly, which was the idea that your customers and maybe mature technology shops or in the enterprise broadly have sort of figured out where they can land something like generative AI to yield the greatest benefits from customer experiences. And so you were talking about the sort of agent assist scenario. That reminds me of the default of being more suggestive than prescriptive with these solutions to yield the
Exactly.
greatest
Yeah.
benefits. How do you think about that?
No, I think that um, in what we're seeing, the real benefit, especially in processes like underwriting, um, is in assisting the underwriter, assisting the agent in getting better product, better results, better underwriting information,
Yeah.
rather than being prescriptive. And part of that is just a data issue, but part of it also is that that is a um, it's much more informative to how the company gets better results for their products in terms of increased margins and increased sales. Um,
Okay.
right now, I would say, the old saw is that insurance is sold, not bought, and a big part of that is that the agent has better information that they can bring to the customer. And so the more you're able to enable those agents, the more you're able to enable the underwriters, the claims agent, et cetera,
Yeah.
the better that information will be. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but to me, that's where that benefit lies.
No, I mean, there's an obvious one-to-one there with my question. And let's get into talking about more specifically a benefit example that you've pulled forward here, which is for insurance, because to your point, there are myriad places where we could be applying AI and automation. But the Gen AI question I had was, again, very specific. But look, where are you thinking about applying AI when it comes to, in this case, an insurance policy?
Right. So this is kind of the whole policy life cycle and all the processes therein. It's even a double click on that last crazy slide.
Yeah.
But um, but when you look at it, right, across a large part of that core process, whether it is the getting information from third parties, or if it's a group or commercial insurer, the intake of data, um, all the way through managing the customer experience, is it's mostly conversational and interactive AI. It's really your guys' bread and butter to a
Yeah.
large degree, right? This is where I would say is the majority of the kind of redesign of what policy management is over the next few years, right? We
Oh,
went
interesting.
through basic process change, and now it's how can we automate and make this interaction much more conversational,
Yeah.
and leveraging AI and products like Usher to be able to do it.
Is um is that a reflection of maybe and I'm teeing up content that I know is later. Is that maybe a reflection of the maturity of where you're applying levels of artificial intelligence? Because from our point of view, and to something that you allude back to something you had mentioned earlier, it doesn't make sense always to try and automate the whole boat. You kind of have to
That's right.
choose your parts, choose your places where you can be most effective. In this case, it seems like you're sort of using varieties of AI to also speak to the places where you might automate and complexity, sorry, with where you might automate specific processes in this insurance policy example.
That's exactly right. So part of it is the different types of AI, and then combined with what we were talking about before around where those benefits are.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely aligned with where the maturity of a particular organization is.
Mm.
And some companies we're working with, they're basically asking the question of, like, I see this is all the stuff I have to do as an insurer, right? Where the heck do I start? Where can I get some bang for my buck and not put my company at risk,
Sure.
right? And so doing that analysis is and kind of the work that we've done here is to be able to help not steer them so much, but help give them the analytics that they need to be able to make that prioritization and not, one, not put their whole business at risk, and two,
Yeah.
Start with a piece of it, not take on too much as well.
From your guys's the EPAM point of view, the only item that I saw highlighted here for functional AI was claims. And I'm curious if you can pull apart some of the reasoning there versus analytical AI, conversational AI, and visual AI, because obviously our point of view is that you need to be precise in where you use your automated customer experiences, and conversational AI supports something like that. So functional AI for claims, what does that mean in this context?
Yeah, so I think, and actually, I kind of did a double take when I looked at this slide, because there is a separate slide that is just around the blow up of claims.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It pulls out the areas that are conversational analytical. So
okay.
I apologize for that. It's really putting too many things into one little square.
I chose the eye-catching piece,
Right. So what this is really focused on is how claim information gets back into the policy data. And that's the functionality. So it's it's meant to just be that that piece of it, rather than the full interaction with customers or agents or whatever, right? Which will be in that blow up slide.
I think that's a common trend that we've seen throughout both the research report and also just in our conversations with customers and prospects. It's the need to be able to automate something like a conversation, and then also automate information intake into something like a claims system to what you had been referring to. So we've seen that there's obviously a huge appetite for deploying automation for those kinds of processes. But we also noticed in the results that the maturity of insurance and FinServ companies tends to be increasing, right? And intelligent automation is being advanced for a lot of our customers and prospects, and they're using it in these ways to automate manual tasks primarily, for boosting operational efficiency, for interactive digital experiences with customers, which is more of our bailiwick, extracting data from documents, which is, again, something that we have a strong opinion on, and language processing, auto routing for email inquiries. Which of these areas do you really see as being the most mature in your space?
That's a good question. So it's interesting. I would say that it started with the manual tasks and getting operational efficiency. I think that's kind of, and we talked about this at the beginning, that, if you were to go back and just look at, robotics as an example, that's kind of starting to try to look at that. But now it has, so I think it's probably the most mature in the sense that it is in some ways the simplest.
Okay.
But what I think is much more both maturing, and where the bigger, I would say, effort lies now is in terms of both being able to extract data and make sense of it, right? Use it in better ways as a way to improve all the rest of these, right? I think that is especially within insurers, have an unbelievable amount of data that they underutilize. And so being able to make better use of it is a huge part of what this goal is. And it's interesting, a number of years ago, I was speaking with the head of claims for a large life insurer.
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, well, there's no point in automating. I only have 50 people in my whole unit. So what are you going to do? Like, you're going to save me $1 million a year? Who cares? And I was like, yeah, that's not the goal, right? And now that same company is making a very large investment in claims automation, not to save money from the point of view of getting rid of staff, but rather to have better data, have better controls, have better information on how those claims, both, for things like fraud, but also for things like building new product, it's much more interesting, and that's where the business case really lies for them. So that's, I think, maturing in the sense that it's in executives' minds.
Yeah. I think that's one of the great values of a partnership like EPAM and Ushur. You have the expertise and the experiences to know what data to even extract, what data to look for. And our platform is excellent at extracting data, making it available for reuse, but there's a whole question of expertise in knowing which data to pull.
Exactly.
I think that we can kind of move on from our point now, since that was a nice little way to summarize what is
Absolutely
very complex process, and talk about the idea of choosing an AI solution for our customers in regulated industries. But let's pull apart, if we may, the idea that we've alluded to a couple of times, choosing full automation for a customer experience or for an automation solution versus choosing assistance. Can you talk a bit about what you think goes into the decision-making process for finding a solution as well as making that very important choice?
So I think that the primary, well, there are two major things to me that make the difference, that make that decision. One is where insurance companies' current technology capabilities are, and so what limitations they have and how they're feeling about their ability to even make use of the AI solution that they pick and how it will integrate. That's one piece that I think, when I was sitting in industry, became it was like the thing that killed me day to day. Is like, I'd love to be able to do X, but I can't do it. But I think the other thing is, and we did refer to this a couple of times, it's around how do you get to a constant level of improvement, and do you have an AI solution that allows you to be able to do that without putting your business at risk? And I think, go on.
Let me just add into that real quick. It seems like the vast majority, we have 72% of folks see that risk is a huge concern for them choosing these kinds of solutions, as they've listed security and privacy as their top concern, right? So managing risk profiles, to your point, is more than just a business decision. There's a technology choice and security choice made here as well.
Oh, absolutely. And they have to have comfort that the solution that they're working with is one that they have comfort in, that they know is going to be there, that also is providing an environment that they that meets their security expectations and needs. And I think the other thing, is that it's still new. It's still new technology for them in the AI space.
Of course.
And, insurers, because they're insurers, they're all about managing risk. That is what we do as an insurer. And so I think it's one of the reasons that, like an underwriter's desktop that enables the underwriter to make use of better AI information, is much easier as a starting point, with the direction that you can automate more and more and make more and more straight through. Rather than necessarily going straight to everything is automatically decided without any, letting the AI make the call, even though, it's only as good as the data it's been trained on. So I think there's a balance in there. And I think that the more use people have in an environment where they are comfortable with security, the more they're able to use it and get build more trust over time as well.
It's a great point. I think that also, as it's very clear as it's been made very clear to Ushur over the years, we've invested so much time, effort, and money into our secure proprietary channels like Ushur and Visible app, because we know that that's a baseline expectation for a lot of our prospective customers. They need to have that level of reassurance in their mind while they are exploring, to your point, the ideas of this brand new deployment of a technology which they don't totally understand, AI. And again, just to replug the EPAM plus Ushur story, thank goodness that someone like EPAM has come around to help them discern where are the productive conversations or customer experiences where they should bring automation driven by AI and better understand what's the art of the possible versus what's proven. So I think that what we see in our report very closely monitors or mirrors rather what your prospects, your customers are expecting from platforms.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Actually.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jason, for this incredible conversation. We are quickly coming to time, and I know that we are coming up on a Q&A section, so I want to make sure that I have at least a couple of these questions put into the chat answered, if that's all right with you.
Fine with me, absolutely.
Okay, great. The first one is a question on customer data used to train models and whether that customer data has been shared with our other customers. So from the platform point of view, Jason, if I can just quickly talk about that.
Please.
Cool. The best practice, obviously, for a secure enterprise platform deployment is to separate customer data and make sure that you're not accidentally sharing private customer data from one vendor to or one customer to another, which is why at Ushur, we don't use Ushur customer data to train our models. We use Ushur customer data to train the Ushur customer models on their deployments, as circuitous as that sounds. So it's segmented, and there are none of the investments like into federated learning. There are no federated learning models deployed within Ushur's infrastructure, so there aren't concerns about things like differential privacy or concerns about having an overlap between one deployment to another. There was another question, Jason, on how can we trust LLMs, and in this case, AI agents in production with sensitive data. AI agents and the Ushur Experience operating system were the topic of our launch event yesterday. From your point of view, LLMs, can you pull apart sensitive data and using it in production?
So we don't believe, I think the best practice that you just talked about in terms of keeping data that is for a customer in their own space is that is best practice without any question. And yeah, to some degree, it limits you on how good your LLM is going to be in terms of its ability to produce answers. That's why it has to learn over a long period of time. There's no question about that. Having said that, one of the things that we also think of as a best practice is at any time, if the AI produces an answer, it also has to produce basically the footnotes of where that answer came from. So you can reverse engineer wherever that data is from and be certain that you can audit it. From a legal point of view, you can audit it, which is important. But in addition, we can call out. It's like I'm not just trying like the example I used for my daughter was, I'm not trusting what TikTok says. I'm going and actually pulling the original articles, right?
Right.
This is where it all came from, right? And that's important because if it came from something that a customer wrote down versus something that was misinterpreted from a doctor, right? Those could make a big difference in like an underwriting decision, and we better be able to reverse engineer and find that. It's another reason to start with assisted underwriting rather than automated underwriting for pure AI.
Yeah, I would reiterate a point which I think that you made excellently, which is that for the regulated industries that we serve, the ability to audit the decisions that AI makes is a demand of regulators across the board, right? I mean, they're expecting for an actual decision made by an artificial intelligence solution to have that capacity. So finding someone, a partner who can support and giving those explanations is important, but also to, again, rehash what you said, not to beat a dead horse. It's essential that you have a partner who knows where to apply automation wisely so that you aren't exposing your company to those kinds of risks where it's inappropriate. Jason, there are a couple more questions in chat, but I think that we're running quickly out of time here. I want to say thank you so much to participating in this partner webinar with us and giving your perspective, your seasoned perspective on how to improve outcomes and make sure that or improve automation outcomes and talk about the trends and that we're seeing in the field. We're super excited to continue more webinars like this with you in the future, but we're glad that you spent the time with us today. And thank you to our attendees. I know that this was a great investment, a huge investment on your guys' behalf in the middle of your workday.